What's going on, everyone? Vampyr Gaming here, and today I'm joined with Zell, who just got top 16 at Peoria playing Purple Luffy with the Spice. How you feeling overall with the weekend?
Uh, I mean, fell a little short of what I was trying to do, but still a pretty decent run overall.
Got it. Yeah, I know it was you were on a hot streak. You started off 8-0, right? And then lost the last two rounds?
Yeah, and then I lost the last two,
Super
unfortunately.
unfortunate. Almost bringing it all the way. But do you remember your matchups from the weekend?
Yeah. So Peoria was for anyone who's there knows it was a bit of a jungle, so the matchup spread's a little interesting. Round one I played against a limb. And then round two, we found meta, which was Rayleigh. Round three, we hit meta, which was Bonnie. Then I hit a red-green smoker, then another Bonnie, then a Calgara, then a UP. Then the my first loss was to a Bonnie, and then my second loss was to a UP Luffy.
Got it. Yeah, well, let's go ahead because I know the list is a bit different, I think, than what we've been seeing, but not too far off from what you've been using. But let's go ahead and kind of just jump in here.
Yeah. So the main difference between my deck list and other deck lists is actually this card. So this is just a searcher for Big Mom Pirates, and that kind of leads into these four cards. So UP, obviously these cards are no longer playable in UP, and I was like, well, if they're too broken to be played in one deck, then they've got to be pretty strong. So why not play a searcher to be able to like find your broken pieces more consistently? And I felt like this was just the next best leader to do it. So that's why we're on the searcher. And then that kind of leads into like, yeah, the other top end that I was playing, which was,
Best
I
card.
think one of the better top ends here, which is the Luffy. Ignore the proxies. I had to give some cards back, but
It's
yeah,
all
this nine
good.
drop Luffy just hand neutral rusher allows you to like basically clear board or just go really aggressive face throughout the game. So this card was super good. I was originally playing three, but I bumped it up to four just because the popularity of UP Luffy. This card is like the best card in the deck against UP Luffy. The aggression forces them to play defensive, so definitely had to play four just for that matchup specifically.
Yeah, and the fact that like it, even with Giant, it costs them one card, right? Like because it's just an organic 10 swing, so it
Yeah,
forces
yeah,
them to do
exactly.
something. It was always like the mirror decider. So now these are just all the top end that you're playing here, right?
Yeah, yeah. This is the 12. I don't think you need any more than 12. And like this card's probably best card in the deck, and then these two, these two have their different purposes. So
Yeah, I
I
was
think
gonna
that's pretty much.
ask, what is like when are you only dropping Linlin when you like need to heal, or are you also using Linlin here for like the removal aspect and playing a bit more control, or is it like unless you're low, you're always playing the 9 cost rusher?
So it's actually pretty matchup dependent, funnily enough. A lot of times into like Green Zoro, you're forced to play the Linlin just because their aggression. If you go to one, then they can 12-12 you, and you lose a bunch of cards. Even if you live, you usually end up dying on the following crackback if they just 12-12 you 2 turns in a row. And then against Bonnie, like you always want to play this card because it can be restood off the kata. So both their Shanks and their
Yeah,
10 drop Dofis just never have a target, so your whole board just sits active the whole time.
got it.
Um, if I can use this to remove a body and like if they have a rested like Cavendish or something, then I'll just use this as basically a 9 drop, removal tool.
Hmm.
But the Lin Lin being able to remove active bodies is super important in a lot of those matchups, just because slowing down the game is usually in your favor since your late game is so strong.
Yeah, got it. Cool. Let's continue on.
Yeah. So the next couple of cards here, are just like the blocker package that I played. So I played four Queen and I played two Brule. This card was basically just to fill searchable targets for this, and if they swing into it on KO, you get a ramp. So the ability to be able to ramp in some of those aggro matchups like Rayleigh or even like GP where they have to swing into you, um, this card's pretty good at just like maintaining a life and then also getting the ramp. And then this card, honestly, might be the third best card in the deck. The Dawn -1 doesn't do anything because you usually just have a Kata in play, so it doesn't really affect anything. And then this thing is a defensive tool. If they swing 7, we just get to block 2k instead of having to give 2 cards. And then as well as like at the end of the game, it can be an attacker. It can contest board. This it's just like super strong. Even playing it on 5, just no effect is fine. Or on 10, being able to go double queen just puts a lot of pressure on a lot of decks.
Yeah, OGs remember when Queen was like four. It was so good in every purple deck that it was like $40 because purple Luffy back in like the 06, 05 days was just incredibly strong just because of how efficient the ramp mechanism is. And then you just like even late game, you play 2 of those, you go net pot like net neutral in your hand
Yeah.
size, and also of course filtering out bricks at the same time. So like any card that really just replaces itself and has a strong body just feels incredibly good 90% of the time.
Yeah, between this, Nine Mom, and Giant, I felt like I almost never had bricks in hand, and I just always had ample counter no matter what my opponent was swinging.
Got it.
So then that leads into this Brule leads into the ramp package. So I was playing 3 It's to Die For, or lead performer rather, and then 1 It's to Die For. And then I was playing 4 Bon Clay and 2 of the double fingers. So a lot of testing went into these ratios specifically. I wanted to have more searchable targets for the pudding to make sure that I was, whiffing a lot less.
Mm.
Even though I think this card is much stronger, I think increasing my percentage of hitting on this, even if it forces me to play a suboptimal ramper in the mid game, was just like better. So that's why I'm not maxed out on 4 of these anymore, and I'm just playing the one of here. And then Bon Clay, just like a standard ramp
The
card. Everyone
goat.
knows Bon Clay. Yeah,
The
card's
card
super
that we
strong.
thought would get cheaper with PRB but stayed the same price.
Yeah, exactly. This card is just pretty strong, especially into a meta where a lot of people have big bodies. Sometimes even against Bonnie, you can just like put 2 of these down late game, and it effectively just puts 2 11Ks in play that they have to deal with.
Hmm.
And then the double finger just filled a 2K slot while also being a ramper. And I wanted a total of 10 ramp or 10, I guess 12 with the Brule if you count this, but 10 guaranteed rampers just because playing this card on curve is so unbelievably strong that consistently hitting this, this ramp into Kata just wins most games. I think I hit it every game that I went first except for one. I hit, ramp into Kata on my 5 Dawn turn, and usually the games were just pretty easy from there.
How is the ramp? Like, what is the like ramp method to make sure that we're always hitting like the kata number? Like, what is? Because obviously you can go like
So
3, 4, play like Bond Clay go 5, but then you go like 7, right? Like, how are we hitting these numbers? Ideally,
yeah, so one Dawn, whether you have the searcher or not, doesn't matter. Then we go to 3, and then we can use the Pluffy effect to go to 4. And now since we have 4, we can play any of our 4 cost rampers here, which immediately puts us into 5. And then, 2 Dawn for turn, go to 7, leader effect, go to 8, and then we can play Kata. So normally our 5 Dawn turn, what should be our 5 Dawn turn, is actually our 8 Dawn turn, which this card, even if we have to go minus on cards to play like double finger, It's to Die For, this card gains back so much card advantage just being able to not have to counter attacks that it's usually worth just like hyper ramping into. That's the whole purpose of this deck, was just hyper ramp into
yeah. I
this.
kind of like I was looking. I was like, this is literally just Lin Lin Katakuri Turbo, which to be fair was like the whole strategy of what Blue Purple UP did. Is because the cards were that strong, right? Like they continually delayed the game, and they gave you so much advantage. Just the more because they would draw 2, you don't draw 2, but you got 5 life, and you get the most efficient ramping mechanism out there.
Yeah, so sometimes you can just reach a point in the game where you're basically unkillable, and just because this acts as an additional life every turn. So even sometimes if your opponent full sends lethal, you can still even delay the game another turn just because of how strong this card is.
Got it.
So then this double finger just leads into the rest of our 2Ks. So I'm playing the 8 searchable 2Ks here off of the pudding. Um, the the reason that I picked this 2K in particular was because of Blackbeard and other removal decks being able to play a Katakuri and then play a queen plus decouplets or like a double decouplets, just two bodies, makes it kind of awkward because they either have to choose to clear this kata or they have to choose to clear your double 5 cost, and they can never do both. So
Mm.
usually they clear the kata, and then we can just use these cards to gain incremental value throughout the game. So that's why I went with this 5 cost vanilla, just because of the double spell play on your Tendon turn. And then this effect actually never came up, but it's basically just a worse Uso Hachi. Um, it rests a 4 cost. You can couple it with Pudding in order to rest a 4 cost by gaining the information. So sometimes can come up if they have a 4 cost blocker in play, but usually just was a 2K.
Got it.
And then the goats of 2Ks, I'm actually only running 2 of. This is because I wanted more searchable targets and I wanted more additional ramp just because hitting Kata on curve is so good that I figured I could cut this card down to 2 because of the next card that I'm playing, which is the 7 cost Sanji. So I effectively have 6 resters for when I want to go for game. Technically this counts, but basically 6 resters for when I want to go for game, and I never once was in a position where I wished I had an Usohachi if I have a Sanji because of leader effects. I can Dawn -1, then gain the Dawn back, and I still feel. And it's basically the same thing. So I had enough rest effects that I think trimming on the Usohachi to play the double fingers was worth it in my head.
Got it. And then so
Um,
on double finger, how often did double finger come up, and was it more like trigger based, or did the ramp like have its moments?
so I actually played this in I think 3 of my games, where I didn't have a different ramp option in hand, so I had to play the double finger and the kata. And 2 of those games I won. One of them was against Quan Lee, which I lost as a Bonnie, but I also played this against another Bonnie, and I believe one other time during the day I played this. And I mean, it being a 4K body means that in the late game, I put a Dawn on it and I can attack. They have to attack back into it, and if they do, then I basically just get a free card for them having to swing at it. So yeah, it was super solid. I'm really glad I added it to the deck, or else I would have missed Kata on curve. 2 more of the games than I wanted to.
Got it.
And then the last and final card is like the most broken card
Oh yeah.
in
Enough
probably the
said.
game.
Enough said.
Yeah,
Uh,
defensive capabilities is off the charts. It's not searchable, but I did see this card a fair amount just because the amount of like filter that I have off of like raw draw off this, Queen. Linden's basically raw draw, and then like my disasters can dig me into it as well. But yeah, super broken card.
Got it. Well,
Uh,
awesome. Well, congrats on the run. So I guess first question that kind of comes to my mind, I'm sure everybody else is wondering too, right? Is obviously, we have the queen, and I see like again similar value proposition, but of course the card is of course, right? A lot of people play the Luffy Taro into like the Sangoro, which allows you to draw a card, and if you can protect, you continually like generate value. Of course, that would in essence delay like a Katakuri turn and things like that. Did you ever consider or like test out Sanji in the list just for the fact of just the draw and potentially like obviously if you have it behind like a Katakuri wall, you can continually draw and generate value?
so I did actually think about the Sangro, like playing it in the deck. My issue that I was finding is that the Sangro was actually stronger into the matchups where I already felt winning
Mm,
rather than the matchups where I felt like I was losing. Like it felt really good into Rayleigh, but I already feel like I have a strong Rayleigh matchup, so I didn't think I needed to tech for it. And like I think that card's pretty bad into Zoro because they just Tashigi swing over it.
mm,
And against UP it gets God threaded or it gets Mihawked.
yep.
So it just it didn't seem like it was enough better into my worst matchups, which is why I opted not to play it. Because also it gets frozen by Carrot into Bonnie, so it doesn't really do anything against Bonnie. So it kind of just like felt dead in too many matchups.
Got it. And then, so what do you think is like this version of Pluffy, right? What do you think is the best matchup for this deck?
Uh, I actually think the best matchup for this deck, or like the main reason I wanted to play it was because I think it has a really strong Zoro matchup. This card, swinging the tempo of Zoro by one life and one character each time is
Mm,
just unbelievably strong, and I think Zoro just can't beat this card. So if you put this in play and then you go like back to back nine mom, I think they lose the game most of the time just because they can never put you in a position where they lethal you, and they're constantly losing their board, so they just like never have enough to push through. Um, but I think overall the matchup, or it just has good matchups into, a lot of the top decks. I think if you see this card against UP Luffy, the matchup, swings in your favor a lot just because the amount of aggro that you have. And then I think Rayleigh's good because I think Rayleigh can't put a blocker in play and then plus like remove your guy over and over again. You just get to a
mhm.
board state where you just full clear everything and they run out of resources.
Got
Um,
it. So are you,
Bonnie's pretty 50-50.
oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, it's just Bonnie's pretty 50-50. It's really draw dependent. If you see multiple katas, multiple nine moms in the matchup, feels a lot more playable than if you don't.
Got it. So against Rayleigh, are you using like a lot of Linlands? One, obviously, to make it where they can't just keep unblockabling you, which is like the bet you, because right, you take your own life, so you set yourself pretty weak, and they can like really aggro you. Are you just playing Linlands, one, taking away one of their bodies, tucking it into life, but then also like healing yourself? Is that like general strat? And then like, of course, you're gonna get those free blocks with Katakuri once you slap him down, because they usually like to try to poke for cards most of the time.
Yeah, so I think this is the main reason that Rayleigh is actually favored because it makes their attacking really awkward because they can never attack sevens basically because then you just free block it. And even if they mulligan this and swing over it, as long as you have another unit in play, they basically waste their whole turn doing that. So then you can just like play another kata and then swing over their Luffy with a nine mom and then swing over their searcher with your leader. You effectively clear two units and you just reset the board state. So this card gains like infinity value against Rayleigh. If any, like if I can, I want to put two in play, and then if I safely get two of these down, I think the game's just over against Rayleigh most of the time.
Got it. Cool. And then what do you think is the worst matchup for this? What's the one thing like that you just don't want to see sit across from this deck?
Funnily enough, this deck is really weak against removal based decks, just because I'm effectively spending one turn putting a big guy in play over and over again. So decks like Lucci or Shanks can reach a board state where they just stabilize, they clear your one big guy, and then for the rest of the game they can just, continuously clear your one big guy while developing board, and it can get a lot of out of hand. I think if I just say what the absolute worst matchup is, I would probably say Shanks, just because once you reach a certain board state, if you don't have guys, the game's just over. You can never come back because you just don't have enough early aggression because of Shanks' leader effect.
Hmm. Got it. And then what like in terms of a tournament, what do you think like that would most likely sit across from you is like that you just hope doesn't? The matchup that you just kind of want to dodge that isn't like Shanks. Is it like Lucci,
Uh,
Blackbeard?
Lucci, Blackbeard is actually fine just because we get off the ground so fast that they don't have time to set up their Exodia board where they have like a Van Augur and a Daku and a seven drop already down.
Mm,
But yeah, mostly just Lucci and even probably Sokka's probably not great. We might be able to out aggro Sokka just because
for life.
for life leader.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can just push. But Lucci is another thing that I really just don't want to see.
Got it. Got it. Yeah, makes sense. Makes sense. Was never really a good matchup. So obviously it's Pluffy. You want to go first, but is there any instances where you want to go second?
I think the only deck that I would take second from is Lucci, just because Kuzan on curve is really annoying to deal with, and if they do Kuzan, um, a turn later, then I'm able to ramp into 9 mom to remove it, and then it makes their next turn awkward. But I think I'm taking first into basically everything else. Um, yeah, I think this deck just generally wants to go first just because of how strong Kata on 5 is.
It makes sense. It makes sense. And then, so let's say you lose the dice roll. How are you operating going second, right? Because the biggest thing, there's been a million memes, right? Pluffy wins dice roll, he wins the game. He loses dice roll, he loses the game. You go next. How are you winning going second?
Yeah, so one of my reasonings for playing this version of the deck instead of the whole Luffy Taro thing was actually because I think the second curve on this deck is still relatively strong. Just because even without a ramper, you're able to take 2 life, and on your 6th on turn, you're able to just put Katakuri in play. And if you play a ramper into matchups where you need to 9 mom their guy, then you can 9 mom on that going second curve, or you can 9 Luffy to apply pressure into, say, UP Luffy, for example. But I think just maxing out this card makes your going second much stronger. So a typical curve would look something like, your 4th on turn, you leader effect, you just raw play a queen, no effects, and then on the next turn you leader effect and you play a kata. And now your board is queen kata, which puts a bunch of, is really defensive play. So sometimes it's hard for aggro decks to pressure through that.
If you have Bond Clay in hand, would you play Bond Clay over Queen on 4 and then just double ramp and then just only sacrifice the 1 life, or would you still consider just playing out the Queen?
So, it's pretty matchup dependent. Against like Zoro, obviously I would never play Queen just because Tashigi punishes this card way too much. So I would rather play one of my rampers and then not have to take an extra life. But against decks like Rayleigh or even like GP Luffy, I'd rather just put my Queen down to get the extra defense because against you know Rayleigh, they can no longer attack 5s, or else I just get a free block. So it forces them to increase their swings by 1, which a lot of times makes their attacks pretty awkward. And then GP, like they usually want to hit 7s, and if they hit 7s, then I get a block too. So I think the extra life that I have to take is worth the repeated value of Queen.
Got it. And so your typical is, of course, like you want 7s and you want to block 2 on those because it's usually more expensive for them to swing into the body, and they're effectively, if they swing into it again, they give you 6k leader. Is that like kind of like the thought there?
Yeah, exactly. And since I'm taking my life so aggressively, it's really easy for me to defend my queen if they decide to, pivot board. And if they treat me like a 6k leader and I'm at 2 life, then I'm feeling really safe.
Got it. Got it. And then, so what is like, obviously, this is a more unique build than what we've seen. Of course, ramping and then the mom package being the core. What does the mulligan look like? Like, what are we looking for in an opening hand in this deck?
So going first, any hand that has some combination of ramp plus katakuri or ramp plus pudding, because I basically just treat pudding like a
Another category.
like an extra copy of katakuri because you see so many cards that you're likely to find it. So I'm keeping most hands that have like some combination of this. Uh, this is the preferred ramp usually. If I have like bad ramp, like this plus like pudding searcher, I might not keep this just because if this doesn't find kata, I feel like the game's just over. But optimal ramp plus pudding searcher, I'm always keeping, or you know, ramp plus katakuri, I'm just like snap keeping, even if the rest of my hand is pretty dead. I think you can dig out of a dead hand just with those 2 cards alone.
Let's say you actually just opened 1 ramp card and 4 katakuri, so like no counter, like a ramp event. Would you still keep it?
Uh, if it's this event and I'm playing against a slower matchup, um, then yes. I feel like against like a deck like Zoro, I can never keep that just
Yeah.
because you usually can't block with your Katakuri into the Zoro matchup. You can't free block because then they
Hmm.
can just like jam over your Kata and you lose the unit, and it's not worth it. So I think against that deck that I can't do that. But against a deck like Bonnie, which is kind of slower, I think I probably could keep that and just continuously put Kata in play and then just create a wall that they can never get through.
Got it. Awesome. Well, to kind of wrap things up, how does typical like end game looking like? Is it usually Sanji to take care of blockers? Is it just like kind of like the UP board where you like three katas, two Linlands, and you just turn them all sideways? What does ending games look like in this deck?
So you usually end up with three big guys, I would say, like some combination of these big guys, just like three of them. And usually the fourth one isn't necessary. You can play another Linlin just because it swings the board so much that putting the fourth one is down is fine. But usually three is fine. And you're usually just using your three to either hit face or swing overboard, and then you're just gonna play one blocker per turn. It's kind of like how UP plays, where they go Sanji, big guy, and then they maybe have like a another 6K unit in play like Rosinante, and then they just play Nami while holding up a bunch of Dawn. I can kind of do the same thing where I just put a queen in play, I hold up two Dawn for giants, and then I use my three big guys just to pressure face or pressure board.
Got it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Any final words of advice for anyone wanting to play this or looking to play this in like now or in of course we're in PRB2 now. Any advice for anyone thinking about this deck?
Yeah, so I think the deck is still strong into BRB2. I don't think we really gain many, more disadvantageous matchups. Um, the biggest thing that I would say about learning this deck is understanding matchups specifically because knowing knowing whether you need to play more defensively or more aggressively, knowing how you can block or when you can block is super important. So I think it's really just like studying your matchups because the deck in a lot of senses plays itself because if you have a ramp plus a Katakuri, there's no other lines. You just do that line. So just knowing in specific matchups when you're supposed to like either push face, hit board, develop this, not develop this, like stuff like that. It's really the nuance of the deck rather than like the list itself.
Got it. Awesome. Well, you can also, of course, check out his Metafy, right? Like for anyone needing advice, that's a thing.
Yeah, yeah. Not even just trying to like plug for money or whatever, but I think if you actually want to play this deck and you want to be successful with the deck, I've put basically all that I know about the deck into the guide. So if it's not on there, then I don't know it, and it was good enough to get me undefeated for a couple of rounds and then a top 16. So I think it has a lot of good info on there if you're trying to get better with the deck.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now, of course, obviously, any shout outs and anything you would want to plug here, feel free to do so.
I mean, I have a lot of testing partners, so it's kind of hard to shout out everyone, but you know who you are if you're watching this. I appreciate it. A lot of testing went into this deck, and it allowed me to mold the list how it is. And yeah, it's mostly it. You know who you are. Thanks for helping me test it out. I appreciate it.
Absolutely awesome. Well, thank you so much and congrats once again.
Thank you.